15-year-old Deanne Catherine Long was walking home with her younger sister Lola to her house in Indiana County, Pennsylvania on July 30th, 1976. A blue car pulled up next to her and said that her brother had been in a car wreck nearby. The driver was willing to take Deanne to the site of the wreck, and so she got in with the man. He had black hair, a heavy mustache, straight sideburns that came down to just below his ears, and he was 20 to 30 years old. That's the description Lola, the only person to see that man, would give police when they came asking. Now, the teenager had been found the next day by a man picking blackberries. She was partially clothed, raped, shot once in the back of the head, probably while trying to run away from her killer. The police would share a composite sketch based on Lola's description of the man who drove that blue car. Early on, police honed in on Earl Elderkin, who lived nearby and was said to resemble the composite. He denied involvement in the crime, and about a week later, he gave police the name of a different man that he thought looked like the composite. The investigation stalled there for a while. Another year would pass, and Elderkin gave a third story. This time he said he went to a party on the day of the murder. He was high on drugs, but remembers bits and pieces of what happened. He remembered a girl being in the back seat of a car that he was also in. He remembered looking out the windshield to see a girl running. He remembered hearing a shot and hearing a girl fall to the ground. He said Larry Walliver was the shooter. Police did not believe it. Elderkin, and Walliver was never charged. 3 more years go by. In February 1981, Elderkin tries to sign himself into a psychiatric facility. He was having recurring dreams about the murder, he said, and he gives a 4 statement. This time he said that John Lynch had the victim down while Joe Ruseski raped her. He said Ruseski then gets a rifle from his car and shot at the girl 3 times, finally hitting her in the head. The next month, he's hypnotized by an amateur hypnotist. Elderkin makes a 5th statement then. He left a party with Louis Fogle and Fogle's brother Dennis. He said he was sick from drinking all day. He said that the Fogles drove up to the victim's house, picked her up, and drove to the woods. He said Louis Fogle raped Deanne on the front seat, and then Dennis did the same. He said he heard Deanne say she was going to report the rapes, and that's when Louis Fogle shot her. After 5 very inconsistent statements, the police return to the victim's sister and her friend Patty Leidick, who both originally said that they weren't home when Deanne disappeared. Lola maintained her story, the girl who was there, about what happened, but the older sister and Patty would suddenly agree with Elderkin's 5th statement. They were home now, they said. She was picked up in a car with 3 men in it, they said. Patty Long would add details that Deanne had a dinner including salad and spaghetti with meatballs, but the autopsy would show there was no sign of this dinner in the victim's stomach. A few days later, they pick up Dennis Fogle for questioning. They eventually get a near word-for-word confession to match Elderkin's 5th statement. So they arrest Louis Fogle. They go back to statement 4 just in case, and arrest Lunch and Ruseski as well. All 3 were charged with rape and murder. All 3 of them. Elderkin must have been ecstatic, really. We should say here that Louis Fogle did not look anything like the composite. Elderkin did, but Fogle did not. Louis Fogle had red hair and a very full beard. Just to shore up the state's case, 3 inmates would suddenly come forward and say, yep, that Fogle guy, he confessed to us too. Ignore the lack of any forensic evidence. Ignore the lack of physical evidence. Ignore the exculpatory evidence. He confessed. The judge threw out Elderkin's hypnosis statement, the one the witnesses suddenly changed to comply with, the hugely problematic statement. Fogle's parents would testify that both brothers were home with them until about 10 p.m. when they went out to a bar. Louis Fogle testified to that as well. Patty Leidick admitted openly that she changed her version of events so that it would line up with Elderkin's because police told her that that was the way it was supposed to be. And yet, Fogle gets convicted of second-degree murder. He gets life without parole on second-degree murder with that evidence. He appealed, and rightly so, but his appeals were denied. Writs of habeas corpus were denied. Even a motion to have DNA tested was denied after DNA testing became available. Finally, the Innocence Project takes the case. In 2010, with the agreement of the Indiana County DA, they finally begin DNA testing. Inconclusive in 2010. They would take more tests in 2014 from 12 additional items of evidence, and they found sperm cells in 2015 and test those. Now, I know this is going to shock a whole bunch of you. The DNA, it wasn't Louis Fogle's. It was male DNA to be sure, but that male wasn't Louis. In August 2015, his convictions were finally vacated and he was released on bond. He reunited with his wife of 34 years. They only married 3 months before his arrest, but she was there waiting for him when he was released after 34 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. His son was only 7 months old when he was sent away. By the following month, the prosecutors dismissed all charges against him, meaning there would never be a retrial. In February 2017, Fogle filed a federal lawsuit for violations of his civil rights. The police officers and prosecutors would claim, "Oh no, we're immune to prosecution. We did horrendous things to you and forced a conviction, but we're immune." A U.S. Circuit Court judge would say, "Oh, hell no, you are not." And the lawsuit was allowed to continue. In 2022, Indiana County and prosecutors Gregory Olson and William Martin settled their part of the lawsuit for $250,000. The case against Donald Beckwith, John Bardoff, John Sokol, Andrew Malora, Michael Steffi, and Glenn Walb, all with the state troopers, would continue. Meanwhile, thanks to the incompetence of police and prosecutors, Deanna Long's murder goes unsolved. Who do you think did this horrendous crime? My money is on Elderkin. Who failed Deanna and her family? The police, who threatened witnesses, including Deanna's sister, to get them in line with that fifth bizarre post-hypnosis statement of the most unreliable witness ever. The police and then the prosecutors failed them. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and you want to see more, please click the subscribe button and hit those notifications so that you don't miss any uploads. We appreciate you. Thanks.